Okay. She talks really fast, doesn't she? And I applaud all of you that are thinking you want to take this journey into self-publishing, because when I listen to a video like this, it's like, oh my God, this is so much work, you know? But it would be worth the journey, I'm sure, if that's what you want to take on. And I applaud you for even considering it. Let me introduce our next speaker. Susan Solomon is a former entertainment attorney. She is also the facilitator of the Buffalo Writers Critique Group, presented by Just Buffalo Literary Center and hosted here at the Central Library on selected Saturday afternoons. If you're interested in getting involved in a writers group, you should talk to Susan when this is over, because she can tell you what they're working on, and it might be worth your time to check it out. Her short stories have appeared in numerous literary journals. She's the author of the Emlyn Good Mysteries, the first of which, The Magic of Murder, was a finalist at the Chanticleer International Book Awards and for the 2016 Book Excellence Award. Her second Emlyn Good novel, Dead Again, was a finalist for both the 2017 McGrath House Indie Book of the Year and the 2018 Book Excellence Award. Writing is Murder, the third Emlyn Good novel, was awarded first place in the 2019 Chanticleer International Book Award Mystery and Mayhem category. Her novel, Abigail's Window, has been recognized in the Reader's Favorite Novel Competition and as the best paranormal romance of 2019 at the Chanticleer International Book Awards. She has recently published Shooting Par, a new Emlyn Good mystery. Please welcome Susan Solomon.
Goodness, I've been busy. My presentation today is Writing is Murder. It certainly is. I know it, and so do you. We sit alone for hours begging Cadmus, that's the Greek goddess of writing, to put words in our mouths, in our ears. We do this day after day, often ignoring husbands, wives, friends. Think I'm kidding? Ask them. Why do we do this? I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, writing is a joy. It's what I want to do when I wake up in the morning. It's what I want to be doing just before I go to bed at night. So if you're like me and sit and write and do it all again until at last a story or a poem or maybe a song is born, and it's good, you know it is. You've gone through it, rewriting 3 or 4 times. Now you want the world to see what you've created. That's where I was. I finished writing my first novel, 180,000 words. Should I self-publish? I believe my novel belonged on the New York Times bestseller list. Probably. To get there, I needed a major publisher, which means I needed an agent. So I bought the book Guide for Literary Agents, and I found the Query Tracker, an important website that also lists hundreds of agents. I developed a query letter, which took a while, and over the next year I sent out maybe 100 query letters. I still have a shoebox full of the rejections that I got. I keep it as a reminder of how far I've come. I was fortunate, though. In 2004, maybe 2005, I met Lori Dean Terrell, who is the head of the Just Buffalo Literary Center. I spoke with Lori about my frustration. That's when she suggested that I join the Writers Critique Group. And as Ann pointed out, that group is now co-sponsored by Just Buffalo Literary and just as important by the Buffalo Central Library. And we meet here generally every other Saturday of the month. I remember the first time I went to join the critique group. The confidence I felt. I had a loose leaf notebook about this big with the entire novel in it. About 700 pages. As my grandmother used to say, I thought I was a whole goddamn it. A big shot. That day I didn't present any of my stories, I just listened to what other people were commenting on their stories. What they liked about the phrasing. What didn't work, what slowed things down. While I listened, my sense of full dynamics kind of faded away. I made notes. That day I learned about gerunds and inactive verbs, something that still haunts me to today. As a matter of fact, my favorite thing about the word was, as I call it, the demon was. After a while, I took that novel aside and focused on short story based on a prompt someone in the writers group had suggested. I worked on it for months, amending it based on the comments that I got from the group. From the work of one of the members, I learned about metaphors to be used in descriptives. At last satisfied with the story that was titled Abigail Bender, and more important, the group not finding any more comments for the book, I submitted it to a competition in one of the magazines that I was subscribed to, the magazine The Writer's Journal. The story was given an honorable mention, and a few months later it was published, my first. What joy. That was in 2008. After that, I continued to focus on short stories. Over the next year, several dozen of them were published in online journals, some print, were picked up in anthology books. One of the stories, Sabbath, was nominated for the Best of the Net. I recognized none of that would have happened without the writers group. Those people who would not let me get away with a thing. They wouldn't. At a session in 2014, we were talking about mysteries. That's my favorite genre. Gary O. Ross, who moderated the group at the time, and who's a marvelous writer, local writer, and an award-winning writer, he dared me to write one. I've never been smart enough to ignore a dare. When I got home, I realized that a recently published short story would be a perfect start for a mystery. I worked on it for 3 months, bringing sections to the group, considering each comment made. Not every comment that you receive from a writer's group is pertinent. Not every comment is going to work for you. Your story, you know where you're going with it. Most of the comments I found do work. And what's even better is when somebody in the writers group looks at a section and says, God, I wish I'd written it that way. That's the kind of special thing that writers groups do. First, what's good. First, what isn't working. How can you fix this? So after about 3 months, the book was done. And again, I queried agents. And again, rejections went into my shoebox. This time I didn't get frustrated. I didn't need an agent to submit to an independent publisher. And I found a number of independent publishers listed online, listed in Query Track. Research brought me to Solstice Publishing. When I went to their website, I saw that they were looking specifically for what the book I wrote did, what it said, what the genre was. I submitted it. The Magic of Murder. Two weeks later, I got an acceptance and a contract. That first book was published in 2015. Those 6 Emma Good books follow. There's a new Emma Good book out, as Anne mentioned. But aside from that, there are 5 or 6 other books that have been published since then. Work, as I said. And as I began, writing is murder. It is. It can be frustrating. There are days when you might want to sit in a dark corner sucking on thumbs. My sister laughs at me when I say I'm about to do that. It takes work, hours of it. It takes research. About half of my time is spent on research. As Susan mentioned, the available material is incredible. Abigail's Window focused on the ghost times during the 1850s, 1860s. That was the time of the Underground Railroad. This library had material that was important, not because it was a central piece of the book, but because it filled it out. And that's one of the things that I did learn. You need to fill out what we've written. Make it a complete country. You need to have people see what you're seeing, understand what's going around, what's going on, what your major characters are seeing, and the reason they're doing things. That's where the importance of research comes in. As I said, I spend about half my time here in the library, in the Niagara Falls Library, and online doing research. Here's the good news, though. We don't have to do the writing alone. That's where a writer's group comes in. So during my journey from there to here, I learned a bunch of important things. Don't let rejections from journals or agents stop you. Don't give up. Keep writing. It's important that you write. We all have stories to tell. Find a writing group and attend it regularly. Consider each comment made. As I said, not everyone is going to work, but so many of them do. And they help form what our book becomes. After a bit, put your story aside for a couple of weeks. Come back to it with fresh eyes. As many times, keep going through it as many times as is needed until you feel that it's ready. Until your writer's group doesn't have much more to say about it. With Abigail's Window, between my writer's group and my editor, God bless him, I went through that book 11 times or more. The result was Chanticleer International Book Awards giving it the grand prize as the best of 2019. That's what's important. One of my latest books, Raising Cain, when I spoke about putting it aside and coming to it with fresh eyes, that 180,000 word novel that I opened with, I realized it wasn't going to work and I put it in a drawer. About a year ago, I was looking for something else and I thought maybe I would find it in something written in that book. When I looked at it and started to read it, I went, oh my God, is that what this is about? I took it out. I started the next rewrite. Chapters disappeared. It came down to 108,000 words, which my publisher was gracious enough to accept. That happened with the help of the writers group. That work became Raising Cain, which is my latest novel. And if anybody's interested, it tells a lot about me when I was young. That's something also that I've realized. In almost every story that I write, I'm in there someplace, peeking out. I might be one of the characters. in Raising Cain, I wind up as the subject of the book. These are the things that make us authors. These are the things that help us put our books together. These are the things that get people interested in reading it. Thank you guys for listening.
Are there any questions for Susan right now?
I have 2 questions. So the first question is, what's one of your best memories as a writer? And then the second question is, you briefly mentioned an editor. How did you find your editor?
Okay. My best memory as a writer was the day that the Writer's Journal came out with Abigail Bender in it. That first publication was such a joy. It filled me with joy. It may have been topped by the day I was notified that Abigail's Window, which was a novel that was built off that short story, was given the grand prize. I wasn't able to get out to the West Coast to be at the awards dinner that year. But I was there on Zoom, and I tell you that when the announcement was made, I started to cry. Your second question was?
Your editor. How did you find your editor?
Tony Kohler. Tony was assigned to me by my publisher, Solstice Publishing. The man is brilliant. He spots things that never would have dawned on me. For example, in Abigail's Window, the ghost, it's a paranormal romance. The ghost's time is 1850, 1860. The time of the Underground Railroad, the Civil War. The ghost's parents were fisher people on Lake Ontario. I spent time researching what fish there are in Lake Ontario. The fish that are there today apparently weren't there in 1850 or 1860. Tony found that out. That's the kind of thing a good editor does besides just spotting the typos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How does writers group work?
Well, at the Just Buffalo, Buffalo Central Library Writers Critique Group, we encourage the members, and membership is free by the way, to bring about 1,000 words. We try to keep the attendance small so that everybody can present every time they come. At that point, you bring copies of what you've written for the people in the group to read, and then you read it out loud. Reading out loud becomes an important thing because you begin to feel the flow of the language, see whether it's working melodically, an important thing in writing. Then, once you've read it, the group, while you're reading, is making notes, and they're going to start out by telling you, ooh, this really works. As I mentioned, goodness, I wish I had written this sentence this way. And then they will say, well, you know, the demon was. It's slowing things down. Is there a way to remove that? Can't do it every time. This paragraph, it's not moving the story forward. Do you need it there? Is there something better that will move it forward? These type of comments. I will comment, the rest of the group will comment, and then you make your notes, you go home and you work on them. As I said, not every comment is going to work. Not for you, you're the writer. You know where the story started, you know where it's going. Most of them will. I found that most of them will.
Great information, thank you.
And if you would like to be a member, part of the Buffalo Writers Group, see me, let me get your email address, and I will put you on the mailing list. The last few weeks, there have really only been 1 or 2 or 3 people that have joined us. We'd like to fill it out, get 5 or 6, 7. That would be nice, yes?
Is it like specific to any like genre, like I write children,
Okay.
so are there mostly adult reading or?
Any genre is welcome. We have had poets. I started my writing career as a songwriter years and years ago. In the days. We've had people writing memoirs. There have been a couple of, over the years, writers of children's books. Once upon a time, years ago, when I was living and working in Manhattan, I tried a children's book called My Daddy Works in a Hole in the Ground. It was written about a child going to work with his daddy in the subway. I wasn't able to finish it, but I found a lot of joy in it and a lot of useful learning about writing. So yes, please come. Anybody else?
What's the hours?
We try to meet every other Saturday here in the library from 3 o'clock till about 4:45. If we have start regularly getting a lot of people that are bringing stuff, well, I'll just go nag in and see to start half hour earlier. Because the object is really to make sure that everybody gets to present every week. And that means that we bring about 1,000 words. I'm not good at counting, so if it's 1,200 words, anything else? Yes.
Can a person come to prison first time they go?
Yes, you may. See me, give me your email address so that I can include you in the next reminder. We meet in the gallery room on the 2nd floor. It's a nice big space, nice and comfortable. And if I recall correctly, we're meeting next Saturday up there at 3 o'clock. So even if you don't see me, come. Next Saturday, 3 o'clock, the gallery room on the 2nd floor. Anybody else? Yes?
Who's your favorite writer?
I've got to say, I told you that I'm a fan of the mystery genre. When I was, as a child, I was never a great reader. Then when I was 11 or 12, my mom gave me Agatha Christie's Harold at End House, and I still remember it. And I remember the book. I was hooked. I've been reading ever since. And I still think Agatha Christie is still my favorite. Although Conan Doyle runs a close second. I think that's it. Anything else? Guys, thank you so much.